Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. You can see I am really enthused for today's discussion. Being a Health Tuesday, we are focusing on epilepsy this morning. It's something we really do need to spread education around. Now, did you know that epilepsy, in fact, affects 1 in every 100 people in South Africa? So there are around 50 million people worldwide who suffer from this disorder. With us this morning to share their perspective a little bit more about epilepsy is the director of the Western Cape branch of Epilepsy South Africa, Wendy Neft, and then epilepsy sufferers, Gabriella or Gabby Joseph and Jessie Williams, who are both living with the condition. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for doing what you do every day. First of all, your organization is amazing, Wendy. But to Jessie and Gabby, thank you so much. I have a feeling there is a lot of uncertainty in this space. We need to hear directly from people living in this space. So thank you so much for being brave enough to sit in front of all of these people on this amazing couch. No pressure. No, we cannot wait to hear from you, Jessie. But Wendy, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
Can you break it down for us in layman's terms? What is epilepsy and how does it actually affect a person? Because I would imagine there's varying degrees within that space as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Graham. I think I just need to note that we are not medical professionals. So I think it's very important. We come from Epilepsy South Africa, comes from a perspective of building capacity and agency within the person with epilepsy for improved quality of life.
Empowerment, yeah.
Absolutely. So epilepsy could be generally described as a recurrent pattern of seizures which happens. And I say recurrent because one episode of epilepsy, of a seizure, does not mean that you have epilepsy.
Okay.
Absolutely. So it takes a series of seizures before a doctor could diagnose. And particularly with epilepsy, really being you have many what we call epilepsies.
Okay.
So there are different types of epilepsies. And the most common one, which people often see, is that when the person drops down and shakes.
And has the convulsions.
And has the convulsions, absolutely. So that's the most common one, and that is called your generalized seizures.
Okay.
The reason for that is like an electrical storm going across your brain. And it covers all areas of the brain. Then the other one, which is quite common also, is called your partial seizures, where one part of the brain, it doesn't spread across.
Okay,
one part of the brain is localized, and you might have twitches, or your sense of smell or sense of taste can disappear. Okay. With generalized, you're normally unconscious for a few minutes, but with partial, and then also, partial seizures, let me just go to one. Focal seizures is a one with one. Your partial seizures, absent seizures, is when, particularly in childhood, when I think it's important for people to know that the learner in the class could often be perceived as having just looking...
Just not being involved,
just not being
out. Oh, wow.
Staring into space. And the educator wouldn't often know what is happening. And more often than not, the child could be seen to be daydreaming.
Oh, yeah.
So what we do with our education is to inform them that they need to observe the children, because after a few minutes, the child will come back. But what happens after that is very important. It's important for the educator to be with the learner and explain that we were talking about maths. This is what was happening.
Bring them back
and bring them back to the environment. So
we're going to
very important.
We're going to expand on exactly what to do in that instance, and I'm going to focus for one entire section just on that, so we can give people the tools. What's hitting me here as I'm hearing you, we're speaking so matter-of-factly about these things. Does that terrify you to hear these things spoken out loud? What has your experience been like with epilepsy? When did it first come into your life journey, and how have you lived through this crazy part of your life?
It started last year in April.
Wow, so it's new.
Yeah,
sure.
So it just one day it just happened. I was rushed to hospital. We did a few scans and tests, and they all came back clear. So all the tests that I have done have come back inconclusive, but the seizures kept on occurring after that. So I was officially diagnosed in June of 2021. And after that, after being put on meds, I was seizure-free for a month, and then I relapsed again in July. So just when I thought, okay, I'm
In the
getting
clear,
used to it now, I relapsed again in July, and from there on, it would happen so 2 or 3 times a month. But then it started becoming less frequent after my medication was increased. So I've been on medication. I am currently still on medication. But my last seizure was on the 21st of November, 2021. So this year, God willing, I'll be celebrating 1 year seizure
Full
free.
year, God willing, indeed.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I kind of envision this as a lifelong journey that you've got all this time to get used to and understand. Bam, at this stage of your life, incredible. Gabriella, give us a beautiful smile, because I want you to please think about something. We're going to chat to you in just a moment. But you've written a book to help other people move through this journey of life. So I'm going to get into the motivation as to why you feel it's so necessary to share your experiences in just a moment. But we'd love to hear from you guys at home. If you do have experience with epilepsy, maybe a family member, or you yourself living with it right now, how do you cope? What are the important things for family members, colleagues and friends to know? 063-408-8863. Our wonderful panel's not going anywhere. I suggest you don't move a muscle either.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for rejoining this vitally important discussion around epilepsy. Did you know that 75% of people with epilepsy will experience their first seizure before the age of 20? Wow, let that sink in. We are continuing our all-important discussion this morning on epilepsy with Director of Western Cape Branch of Epilepsy South Africa, Wendy Neft, and then epilepsy sufferers Gabriella Joseph and Jessie Williams. Gabby, I'm going to start with you. Thank you so much for sticking around, and thank you so much for your contribution in this space. You've recently written a book. Why was it so important for you to tell the story? What are you wanting to educate or empower people around when it comes to epilepsy?
Well, basically, I just want to encourage people who are epileptic and have family members and community members who are surrounded with individuals by epilepsy to understand that it is not the end of the road. A lot of stigma that comes with epilepsy is that sometimes people are incapable of doing a lot of things, like maybe functioning like a normal person, but that isn't true. And with this book, I'd just like to get the message out there that maybe saying no to every situation, whether it's epilepsy or any other health condition, is maybe not always the best answer. That little bit of faith that we have in ourselves and that the rest of people have in us motivates us and actually could be a little bit stronger than the medicine we receive sometimes.
Wow. That is the human condition. Gabby, I absolutely love that. We've had a couple of voice notes come through already. I'm going to chat now to Anonymous in just a moment. We're going to get their perspective. Jessie, maybe I can put it to you. How different do you feel as opposed to how people treat you? Because this has only started recently, and you are so young, kind of on the foot of adulthood, if you will. How do you feel walking that line now?
I've kind of gotten used to it. In the beginning, it felt like I was this person wrapped in bubble wrap.
Yeah.
Everyone would constantly ask me, are you okay? Are you okay? Since I don't know what kind of triggers my seizures, most of it is stress and anxiety. So one of the main triggers is the flashing lights. So that doesn't really trigger me, but when we are out in public and I'm with my friends and they'll say, Jessie, don't look, Jessie, don't look, and I'm...
People suddenly throwing their tops over your head. No, no, get out of here.
And it's something that I don't really pay attention to anymore, but I'm grateful and glad that they still keep it in mind and that they care about that. But I've kind of gotten used to it. I used to think a lot when I used to get the seizures. I used to think every day, am I going to get a seizure today? Especially when I leave the house, or if I'm at a friend's house.
On your own.
Yes, I always think, am I going to get a seizure today? When I'm at school, when I'm at work, I think, am I going to get a seizure today? Are these kids going to see me fall to the ground and not know what to do? But I have gotten better at it, at controlling it. It is a big mental health issue as well. It takes a toll on you.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah.
It definitely does, especially for people my age as well, because going through this, you are in, like you said, you just entering adulthood.
You're supposed to be springboarding into your future.
Yes, and now, but like Gabby said, we don't always have to let it control us. Not that we control it, but to keep moving forward and to keep motivating ourselves that we are not epilepsy. It doesn't control us and it doesn't make us who we are. That we should still continue. We are still normal people. That shouldn't control who we are and control our lives.
And who cares what people think, to be honest? If it happens, as long as it's happening in a safe way or it can be managed, who cares who sees you, what happens? All I'm seeing is this can be a tool to empower you to be stronger than you ever thought you could, which is amazing to me. So thank you so much for sharing your perspective. I think, Wendy, if you don't mind, I'd like to get practical right now because I've been in that situation 3 times where someone sitting right next to me has had a fit. Thankfully, I had some idea the last time, but the first 2 times I felt absolutely helpless. Please, can you show us what to do or give us a bit of a practical? I'm going to send you across to the gents who are going to help us through this process, but please, if you don't mind, giving us a bit of a play-by-play. So I'm going to send Wendy across there now. We're going to continue chatting to Jessie and Gabby, and I'm going to continue to ask you guys to send in your perspective, your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you if you have lived with epilepsy and how you've been able to find that balance, so we can start pushing back at the stigma surrounding this condition. But we're going to get practical right now with a few tips.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to our medical discussion. Now, with some adjustments, people with epilepsy can enjoy activities that may be considered dangerous by many people. The truth is that the risks are often no greater for people with epilepsy than those without. The director of the Western Cape branch of Epilepsy South Africa, Wendy Neff, took us through a brilliant practical demonstration. Thank you so much for that. And we're also joined by Gabriella Joseph on the screen and Jessie Williams, who both suffer from epilepsy right now. Before I connect with you again, Gabby, we've asked you guys at home to send through your voice notes, and we've got one from Anonymous. Let's hear from them.
Good morning, Expresso show. I wanted to ask, what causes epilepsy?
Okay, we'll shelve that one. You're going to hear one more from Madeline.
Good morning, this is Madeleine. I just need to know, how do you prevent someone from having a seizure? Besides meds, is there any natural thing that a person can give to help? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Madeleine. I love that. Okay, so Wendy, I'm going to start with you. I know you're not a medical practitioner, but you have worked in the space for a long time.
Correct.
What is ultimately the root cause of epilepsy? Do we know?
It's very strange because a lot of the causes are unknown. And we use the word idiopathic. I like that word.
Yeah, because no one knows what it means, so it's great. Yeah.
Yes. But if at early onsets within childhood, it could be at birth, there could be a lack of oxygen during the birth process, and that could then affect a particular part of the brain because of a lack of oxygen. And then most commonly is diseases and infections, meningitis, all of those things that also could impact on the brain. As we grow older, children would fall, injure themselves. A year later or so, they start convulsing.
Is there a link
so there's
to concussion?
range.
Has there been a link to concussion?
Concussion, yes. Definitely depends on where the lesion is. So that is why, as we said, the EEG is important. If there's, whatever, go to your doctor. And this is what I really want to tell the parents out there, is that please write down, jot down, have a journal of every episode, because that helps the doctor
and specifics.
to diagnose, coming back to the question, to actually diagnose the source of where that is coming from.
Okay, I absolutely love that. Gabby, I'm going to turn to you now. Have you found a way to mitigate the seizures? Sham, we're going to bring Gabby back on the line in just a moment. Jessie, I'm going to put it to you then. What helps? Have you found a way to, say there's a relationship to mental stress and strain and anxiety, controlling that, does that help? Have you attributed something to not having had a seizure for the last year? What do you think you're getting right?
Besides the meds, I do think, I'm a huge fan of music, so I always walk around with earphones in, which is sometimes a bad thing because it stresses my parents out. But music usually calms me down.
It's like Stranger Things, man. You've got to have the music, the power music, the power ballad, yeah.
So music usually helps me going on walks just to clear your mind. Yeah, just the basic everyday things that the little things, reading a book, journaling also helps. My counselor taught me more about journaling, writing down how you feel about, especially on the day, or
Process it.
processing it, yes. So
For
journaling helps definitely with
To
that.
put it in perspective, because ultimately, as much as you can get help from other people, this is a journey you're
Yes.
It's a way of
walking
life.
alone, essentially. So I get that. Gabby, I really wanted to hear from you because you are being quite proactive in this space to break down those stigmas. In your personal journey, what do you believe needs to shift here? What help can be offered? Does it need to come from the medical fraternity? Do we need more connections like Epilepsy South Africa, that kind of network? What do you think is the key take-home for us today?
Graham, I really believe that corporate environments can incorporate epileptic training into their systems. I do know a lot of companies offer first aid training,
Yeah.
and I do think it would be a good movement for companies to involve first aid training in terms of epilepsy within their programs. I think that would help a lot of people who are assisting the epileptic. They would also feel a whole lot more confident, and I think we tend to help out a little bit more the more knowledge we have.
Yeah.
So I definitely believe that first aid training should definitely include epileptic and seizure administration help.
I absolutely get that. And I think it's a dual kind of battle here of breaking down that stigma, but just people being empowered. And it didn't take a lot to be able to help in a critical situation like that. But I think, for me, the most important thing is that lack of judgment. When that person comes through from a seizure, they must be in a safe place. So let's create safe places wherever we go. And if you're a custodian of any sort of environment, it means you have a responsibility to train the people living and working in that space to be able to do exactly what Wendy showed us. Jessie, thank you so much for being brave enough to open this window into your world. Thank you so much to Gabby and everybody else for weighing in on this conversation. We really do appreciate it.